Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X Factor number 75, cover dated February 1992. The cover is by Larry Stroman, inked by Milgrom, and very clearly it features X Factor up against the Nasty Boys, and here in the background a massive looming Mr. Sinister. Now, something that I've commented on in previous videos regarding these covers in particular is because of the uniform colors of the X Factor costumes, the figures kind of tend to get a bit confused. So there's a bit of confusion there between Havoc, Multiple Man and Lorna Dane in terms of making out who's who in the blend of anatomy there. And also there is a color error here on the cover where Mr. Sinister's red diamond on his forehead is colored blue for some reason. I don't think this is Glynis Oliver coloring the cover. I think it would have been nice to have a wraparound cover for the 75th issue since they've made it double-sized. There's 38 pages, there's 38 pages of story inside this issue. So the wraparound cover would have been a nice little bit of treatment, I suppose. It's kind of interesting too to think that this one evaded having a gimmick cover. That would be coming shortly for all anniversary type issues, but not here in late 91, very early 1992. So let's open this one up to the first page. And it's not quite a splash page, but we do get a splash where somebody throws a tomato at the TV set and is aiming in particular for Guido there, strong guy. The title of the story is The Nasty Boys, and the creative team, written by Peter David, penciled by Larry Stroman, inked by Al Milgrom, lettered by Michael Heisler, and coloured by Glynis Oliver. So it'll turn out that this is a very kind of adolescent type basement in which these nasty boys are relaxing and waiting for orders from their boss. So we've got Slab here. He featured in the previous issue. He's the guy that threw the tomato at the TV screen. And then we've got these other members of the Nasty Boys. So we've got Gorgeous George here, and we have what's the name of the other guy here if it comes up in the dialogue? Hairbag. Yeah, what a great name for a character. So we've got the three of these, and we can get a sense of what their powers are. Slab is able to change his mass and become much, much bigger, as we saw in the previous issue. Gorgeous George has these arms that seem to be extendable, as if they're kind of like liquid plastic or metal or something of that order. And Hairbag looks like some kind of evolved dog, yes. So they're arguing with each other. This gives us this gives Larry Stroman an opportunity to show off with his particular skill at designing grotesque looking visages and physiognomies, which he's enjoying here with Slab. And then we get a look at what he can do here with Hairbag in this particular anchor image. And then as they're squabbling there, the boss arrives. We're about to have company, says Gorgeous George. So who's this mysterious figure descending the staircase? Well, it will turn out to be Mr. Sinister. So that's been teased in the previous issues, that the figure behind the things that have been happening to X Factor, in particular Multiple Man, Strong Guy and Quicksilver, might be Mr. Sinister, and now it's revealed that it is. And what we see here is Larry Stroman's redesign of Mr. Sinister's costume. So now his costume is more like a type of armored costume. So you've got these pads and probably armoring on the costume. And also kind of interesting here that he's got a removable crotch piece. So that's how he uses the bathroom, let's say, and maybe other things too. A quirky little detail of Larry Stroman's redesign of Sinister's costume. And Sinister does have a good costume, originally designed by Mark Silvestri, of course. I wonder, did Stroman do this off his own bat, or was he invited to do it by editorial? So Mr. Sinister here, his dialogue written by Peter David, of course, and therefore he's much more, comical in his style of talking. different from Chris Claremont's version of Sinister, who was an altogether more, who was a villain with much more gravitas and menace than this particular one, this particular version of the character. So here he is berating them for the state of the basement. I don't imagine any of you has heard of such niceties as air freshener. The atmosphere down here in the hangout could flatten Magneto. What in the world is that growing over in the corner? So, as I said, like, this is not the kind of dialogue one would expect of Mr. Sinister, unless one remembers, and I wonder did Peter David know it, what was Chris Claremont's original plan for Sinister, that in effect he was what a 10-year-old boy might imagine a menacing supervillain to look like. So we have this business about the mold growing in the corner, and then it turns out there's two other nasty boys who are not present, Ruckus and Ramrod. So Sinister's asking, where are they? So this is a nice 2-panel page. Really, really nice work on this page by Larry Stroman, and really showing off, once again, his fantastic design sense. So it turns out that they had an emergency to attend to, says Gorgeous George. They went out to make another beer run, didn't they? Well, yeah, so that's what it turns out to be. Meanwhile, attention is taken by the TV screen because the newscast is continuing, and now there's a senator featuring on it, the senator who's been revealed in the previous issue to be in cahoots with who has now been revealed to be Mr. Sinister. And the senator continues, while mutants, GCs, or whatever they choose to call themselves, run rampant through the streets, especially when these rampages are sanctioned by the government, supported by tax dollars that could well be funding some secret sinister agenda. He says he's going to make it clear that the American people are not going to stand by and stand for all of this. And Sinister says here, especially with the use of the adjective sinister, now there's a man who knows a good soundbite. Pity he knows little else. So Sinister manipulating the senator is what is implied there. And then the scene switches to Washington, D.C., and to the headquarters of X Factor. And we have Strong Guy here who wants to quit, and he's saying he's out of there. That's what I know. That had to be the single most humiliating experience of my life. They arrested me, fingerprinted me, took away my Gucci belt. That was at the end of the previous issue. But this is a really nice panel here. We've got the checkerboard, chessboard floor, and we've got all the characters in perspective here. Havoc walking forward, Polaris and Rain as well. And then just look at this, just a random piece of what looks like African art sculpture here, just on the floor beside Strong Guy. Now that's something that Larry Stroman didn't have to draw, but obviously it took his fancy to draw it, and in it goes. And that's what I like about Stroman. He's got these little quirks to the way that he treats his artwork on these pages. He's having a little bit of fun as well as getting the story told, that's for sure. So what happens here is that Havoc steps up as team leader. This is a nice panel as well, nice angles here, like a really acute 3/4 reverse profile on Strong Guy, and then Havoc here in silhouette, and he says to Strong Guy, and his hysterical act, he says, "You're staying put." "The heck I am, Lex," responds Strong Guy, and Havoc says, "Listen, Guido, I just know there's someone behind all this, trying to split us up. You leave, they win this round. That what you want? To be so gullible and predictable that they could get you to abandon us? Sure, they figured the big one, the Strong Guy, large and dumb, easy target. You going to prove them right?" So that persuades Guido to stay, but he wants everything to be resolved quickly, and Havoc says it will be, I promise. So I really like that characterization of Havoc, that he is taking charge here and really growing into his role as leader of this new team. So then Baldrick arrives, and he's got news for Val Cooper that the line to Moira MacTaggert is up and running. So she wants it piped downstairs because they want to check up on the story of the dupes. One of them was referencing the Coconut Grove affair, and said that Moira MacTaggert could confirmed that that was a real thing. So we'll get to that shortly. Now we've got the beer run with Ruckus and Ramrod. So this is Ruckus here and this is Ramrod. And basically what they decide to do is rob this 24-hour grocery. And kind of dressed like New Romantics there. Or kind of actually a twist between the New Romantics and like Lost Boys couture as well. Yeah. And here we go. We get a little bit about these two guys' powers. So Ramrod is able to affect wood. So he's got this piece of wood here with nails through it, and he's able to grow it. But there's something weirdly, obscenely phallic about this as well, because he sticks it right into the guy's chest and kills him. And Ruckus says, "Nice move, Roddy. Quick, empty the register." So they do that, and then, you know, we've got some more comic business because it's Peter David. "I didn't mean empty it on the floor." Well, now looky there. The police in less than 90 seconds. How often does that happen outside of TV shows? "Got your earplugs in, Roddy?" "Yeah, do it." So this is what his power is. He's able to take noises and amplify them and redirect them. So that's what he does. He uses all the alarms and sounds and sends them right at the police. And again, just look at the way that Larry Stroman is drawing this face with the massively dropped jaw as well. The exaggerated physiognomy of the face really looks very well. And another great page here, action page. Interesting to get that reverse angle on Ruckus here. And then all the sound effects nicely drawn in by Michael Heisler as well. To the point that this cop is bleeding out of his nose and ears. So Ramrod says, "You're some piece of work, Ruckus. It's a knack. Now go back and get the beer, Einstein." So there we go. And then we have the hookup to Moira MacTaggart, who confirms the Coconut Grove story. Jamie's involvement with the other young mutants, the Fallen Angels, I think Jamie called them. So that was an adventure with Siren, and it was a mini-series. It's all true. Exactly as the Madrox in the coat, the one you haven't got tied up like a prize steer described. And then Val asks, well, why does the other Jamie not have a recollection of it? And this is interesting. So this is an interesting piece here regarding how Madrox's mutant power might work and how it might impact on the psychology of Jamie Madrox. I'm not sure. Maybe he's lying, trying to confuse things, or possibly it's really some sort of mental block. There's so much about Jamie's merged psyches we don't know. Also, the longer they're apart, the more independent they become. That's why all the dupes disappeared when you knocked the original unconscious. Except for the one. His mind is his own. So with all those pitfalls to contend with, the likelihood of Jamie becoming a bit off-center is high. Each of us is the center of our own world, except Jamie. Every one of his dupes sees the world just a bit differently, and then is constantly re-merging, trying to put those different worldviews into one. That's really, really interesting stuff. It's an interesting way that Peter David has thought out the ramifications of Jamie's power in terms of his psychology, and he's the first to do that. So interesting stuff, doing something that Claremont never got around to doing, or thought of doing even. And I like this drawing here of Polaris and Strong Guy just listening in on the call, not saying anything, and Polaris in particular very thoughtful about it all. Moira she continues, upbraids the Jamie in the coat. If you wanted some time away, a vacation, whatever, you could have just told me. Instead, you go sneaking away, leaving a dupe behind, as if you're so clever to be pulling some sort of schoolboy prank. Honestly now. So she's annoyed with him, but then she says, "I hope to be seeing you. Good luck to all of you." And away she goes. And that's interesting because where is she? Is she on Moor Isle? Or is she at the X Mansion? Because at this time, it should be that she is at the X Mansion. Just a hookup to him. Yeah, so she's got to be at the X Mansion for that call rather than Moor Isle, because Moor Isle was destroyed in the Shadow King saga. Okay, So, and the aftermath of that was shown in Peter David's first issue on the title, which is X Factor number 70, prior to the new team and prior to Larry Stroman coming on board. So now we have the Madrox in the coat saying, I think maybe one man in a million. So he thanks Val's ex-husband there, because he was the polygraph expert, and he thanks him. I think maybe one man in a million would have been expert enough to detect such subtle shadings of truth and fiction between myself and myself. That was all dealt with in the previous issue. And Lorna here is observing the dupe, or the Madrox, in the restraints. He looks, I don't know, shell-shocked. And Havoc says, wouldn't you be? I mean, what would you do if you found out you weren't who you thought you were? So off goes Val's ex-husband, or so it seems. This, by the way, is an interesting composition as well, to have the trio of Guido, Lorna, and Alex here between these two panels and breaking the borders of both, and in a borderless panel themselves. Interesting layout from Stroman. So then we get a page like where the story moves along. There's a little moment there between Val and her ex-husband, but Lorna is still feels for the Madrox in the restraints, and she says to him, look, I just want to know, I'm really sorry about this. I mean, I think you're really sweet and fun. And off she goes. So Polaris in Peter David's run is kind of intuitive. She's got an intuition, and she twigs something about this particular Madrox, and she'll turn out to be correct later in the issue. So now the guy in the coat basically says, let's merge. Come on, what do you say? Let's be one big happy family again. And the Madrox in the restraints agrees, let's do it. So this is really interesting visualization of what the merging of the two amounts to, or how, rather better to say, how Larry Stroman communicates it visually. And then the choice to have this upshot of the Madrox in the coat, like mostly in shadow. Well, that's that. And that kind of evil grin on his face as well. But really nicely designed page, and nice visualization of the merging of the two Madroxes there. And then we continue with, what happens is we get a kind of like an unexpected revelation, which is that Val's ex-husband, Edmund here, turns out to be Mr. Sinister. So Mr. Sinister is a shape changer, and he was posing as Val's ex-husband, and that is a twist. And now the Madrox who walks freely from X Factor headquarters gets in the car with him. So what is going on there is the question at this point in the story. And then we're with Quicksilver. When he showed up in issue 71, was in trouble with his health, and was of the belief that every time he'd use his power, he was growing older. So he's having a full medical checkup here, and it turns out there's nothing wrong with him. He's all normal. And Havoc asked the question, but his collapse outside the monument, that was in the previous issue, it seemed like a heart attack. Oh, really, Dr. Summers? Well, the EKG showed no scarring. There was no heart attack. The only thing I can attribute it to is stress. It's in your mind, he says to Quicksilver. Physiologically, you're fine. I'd recommend 2 aspirins on a night on the town with some lovely young lady. It'll do wonders for you. It does for me. I'll send my bill. So it was all in Quicksilver's mind, and Havoc starts to think about all of that. And here we are now with the Nasty Boys again. So we've got a group shot of them. Looks good. And now Madrox arrives and high fives Ruckus there. And in the background, in walks Mr. Sinister. I really like the way that Stroman here has drawn Mr. Sinister in the background. We've got an open figure, open for color, And then just the little details of the red diamond and the red eyes coloured in by Glynis Oliver. It's nicely done. This is another nice page here. And Sinister's arriving with the Senator. Boys, this is Senator Stephen Shafran, a man destined for great things. Senator, you haven't met most of my proteges, my nasty boys yet. So we get introductions to all of them, but we know their names by now. And also Madrox, the multiple man, as well. So, the Senator here says that he's got a mutant power, which is event manipulation, plus the ability to unsettle the minds of others and cloud their thinking and abilities. So he's the guy that is responsible for the adverse impacts on Multiple Man, on Quicksilver in particular, and also on Strong Guy as well. And he says here, like, what his ultimate aim is. His ultimate aim is to take on the Avengers and take them out. And I wanted to tell you all to keep up the solid work. I'm making my speech in the Senate this afternoon. My next major salvo on the president. Come the next election, there'll be a new man in the Oval Office. Bet on it. Now, if you'll excuse me. So off he goes. Peter David works in a little political joke there. We'll skip that. And Ruckus here says, I still don't see why you cooperate with that guy. He must be paying you plenty. Indeed, and your point, Ruckus. My point is, when do we get our cut? What you will get, Ruckus, is in line. So Mr. Sinister asserting his authority here. You may be leader of the Nasty Boys, but I am your leader. Do not forget that. Or what I can do to you or those you hold dear if you continue in this arrogant course. So basically, as I said, like, he asserts his authority there, and then Madrox says he's got a headache and he needs to go lie down. So off he goes, and we'll see what that turns out to be. Meanwhile, we just have a very short cutaway to this character, Vic Chalker, who is who's got a major antipathy to mutants, and he's built this battle suit, but he wasn't able to fit in it the previous issue. And now he realizes that the suit uses up power so quickly that it's drained entirely of energy and it won't move. And now he's got a problem of how does he get out of it. So Peter David running this subplot with Vic Choker every issue for laughs. And then the scene switches to Washington, D.C. again. I like the simplicity and abstraction of this establishing shot and the sun setting here. And now there's something that's been set up in previous issues as well. The fact that Rain has this crush or obsession with Alex. And it came to almost a head in the previous issue where she made her way into his room while he was sleeping. And Lorne is determined to have a talk with Rain about what's going on there. It's a really nice shot of her reading in this very modernist design type chair. Yeah, nice angles on this as well. So Polaris asks her, is there anything you'd like to discuss? Just us girls? And Rain responds, I thought you were the one who wanted to talk so blessed much about what I cannot guess. So Alex is the point. And Rain here says, I don't know what you're talking about. And frankly, Lorna, just between us girls, sounds to me like you're a wee bit jealous. So that gets her goat. She says, look, kiddo, you've been acting weird ever since you blew back from Genosha. You better tell me what's up with you. And that was because in Genosha, during Extinction Agenda, Rain half underwent the mutate process, and she was being bonded to Havoc when Havoc was a magistrate. So it seems like that process has left her with this obsession concerning Alex. But anyway, I like her response. She says, I don't have to do anything, and kindly drop the kiddo. I'm only 8 years younger than you. And then they're interrupted by the arrival of the team. So what things come down to is here, I think it is Alex that is saying this, which makes sense. He says, I think we're dealing with someone who has the power to turn our own powers against us, to create situations or mindsets where our abilities ricochet back. He or she did it with Pietro and Guido, and he was about to say Madrox. And who is it that fills in? It's Val. She says, no. And it's Lorna here. Look at these tails, like they're going everywhere in this particular panel. Jamie. So that would mean, Alex says, the one who walked out of here, oh nuts, we've got to go find him. So now we pick up with that Madrox who walked away with the headache. And it turns out that there's something wrong indeed with him. And again, look at the way that Stroman visualizes this kind of whirlpool at the center of this Madrox's chest. And he's there protesting, it's not fair, you had your chance already, now go away. So what's going to happen is he transforms, or kind of rather, he collapses in on himself, and then there's a big pop, and out comes the Madrox Prime, I'll call him. Dupes may be identical, he says, but there's only one genuine original, accept no substitutes, multiple man. And there we go. That's a great little anchor image of him as well, breaking the border of the other panels too. So the Nasty Boys attack, but he's able to deal with all of them, creates a dupe and pops through Gorgeous George. And this is interesting. So the Sinister is blocking his way out of the building. And he says to Madrox, were you planning on leaving our humble facility? Yeah, says Madrox. Well then, don't let me stop you. So this surprises Hairbag. He says, what, you're letting him get away? And what does Sinister have to say to that? I don't want him to get away. I do, however, want him monitored. I believe he'll head toward the capital because now that he's overwhelmed the renegade duplicate, the dupe's mental blocks are no longer in place and Madrox knows all. Madrox's sense of heroics will doubtlessly prompt him to confront the senator. Do not force a battle before you get to the Senate, and then take your best shots. But why? What are you up to? I, my dear Nasty Boys, will be dealing with matters in another way, and we'll find out what that is a little later in the story. And this is a great panel here as well, where we've got Quicksilver running at top speed through this crowd. And again, you get this thing that Stroman likes to do. He likes to draw really quirky, weird-looking civilians with all kinds of body shapes and sizes and styles of fashion and so on and so forth. Interesting stuff. So here he is running with Rain, and they're en route to they're en route to find Madrox. So this is what Val says. The tracer in the headsets is working perfectly. We're readying the car, and Alex, Lorna and Guido should be catching up to you shortly. Proceed with caution. So they're en route to the capital as well. That's a nice panel of Rain moving at speed with her hair like flying back behind her. It's nicely done. Nice acute upshot angle as well. And then we're at the capital itself. Quicksilver's not Quicksilver, but rather Multiple Man's arrived. The Nasty Boys are on his tail, and then he creates a load of dupes here, and so they don't know which ones to go for. But their leader Ruckus says, you don't have to know which is the real one. Just head off any that are going for the Senate building. That's where we want to keep them away from. So that's a clever point. And then in the building itself, you have apparently Senator Shafran here giving an anti-mutant speech, saying here, while squads of renegade GCs wander the land, the president has created a task force of these untrustworthy individuals. He's talking about X Factor. This gentleman is a danger to the American people, sanctioned by the highest office in the land. So this is his salvo against the president that he was talking about. Other senators here commenting on his speech and noting how it must be his first move to become the next president. And then we switch back outside to the fight outside. X Factor arrives. And also they're using an old Fantastic car. So Guido makes a joke about it. Would have been here sooner, but we hadn't finished painting our logo over the big number 4 that used to be on our flying car. So you people have to be X Factor. Yeah, we have to be. All the better names were taken. More jokes. And then more fighting. So again, another nicely designed page here. We've got a rematch between Guido and Slab, where this time around, Guido's going to get the better of Slab. Basically knocks him out with one left hook to the jaw. And in the course of the battle, they end up knocking into the Senate building. So here's the senator saying, you see, the destruction knows no bounds. We're at their mercy as long as we tolerate them, he was going to say. So what happens next is a big surprise. When he's asked to explain himself by Havoc, he says, I'm not going to explain myself, not to any of you. I represent the American people, and they won't be fooled by your kind, not for 1 minute. You made me do this, Havoc, he says, but the American people will understand and they'll support me. They'll appreciate my honesty and love me all the more. And he says, basically, when Havoc confronts him here, he says, knock it off. You're not accomplishing anything and you're going to get somebody killed. The senator apparently says, I hate to admit it, freak, but you're right. There'll be a better time and place for this, but believe me, there will be another time and place. And so he flies away. So this is all very unexpected. And we'll see that things were not entirely as they appear here. So away flies the senator, look out America, I'm coming to spread the word. And he flies out of the top of the Capitol building. And that would seem to be that. So now it's a case of mopping up the nasty boys. And then along comes the media. And then this is the surprise, this is the twist, where Mr. Sinister manifests here. And it turns out that the senator was tied up all along. He says, you see, it was important that you had a stand-in today. I made sure to leave the TV on C-SPAN. I assume you saw it all. Let me remove the gag and we can chat. So Sinister says, I already have power. My only concern was you and the difficulties you would have caused for mutants if you'd gained power. And believe it or not, you would indeed have become president if left unchecked. You even would have caused the death of Alex Summers and Lorna Dane. I could not allow that. And then very interesting personal reasons. So of course we know that Sinister is in particular interested in the DNA of the Summers family and potential offspring of Summers boys. So here he continues and says, so I manipulated you and now the general public believes you to be the precise type of mutant you yourself warned against. And once Val Cooper finishes putting the right spin on this, X Factor will be heroes, which suits my purposes. Of course, it will take her some time to figure out how her ex-husband works into it all, but I'll let that stew for now. Now I know that you're wondering, why didn't I simply kill you in the first place? That, Ricochet, will be your job. So the guy's saying the voters are going to believe him. Then Peter David makes a political analogy here. Did they care about Gary Hart's explanations or Ted Kennedy's? And then a quotation from The Godfather, Part 2. In Roman times, disgraced senators opened their veins. This is a bit more reliable. Use it wisely, Ricochet. So the senator shoots at Sinister, but his cloak, his ribboned cloak, is armored, and the bullet ricochets off the back and catches the senator in the head. So all kinds of ironies here operating in this particular scene. And here we get this huge image. And an interesting mirroring as well. We've got Mr. Sinister with the red diamond on his forehead, and the senator now dead with a red dot on his, which is the entry point of the bullet that shot him in the brain. You think I'm formidable, he says to the corpse. Then you think correctly, my friend. For when it comes to the domination of our kind and of the destruction of all those who ever bore the name X-Men, no one compares to Mr. Sinister. But we still don't, at this point, know 100% what his motivations are. He is mysterious. He seems to be ambivalent on certain points. He's got a special concern for the preservation of X-Factor, for Alex Summers and Lorna Dane, but he's still out for the destruction of the X-Men. So, you know, it's a little bit, as I said, ambiguous in terms of his motivations. And now we have Alex closing out the issue on TV again. The issue opened with X-Factor on TV, ends with X-Factor on TV. And that's another dimension of this book. They are government sponsored, so they are the public face of heroic mutants on the side of the government, and then of course putatively law and order. Although we've seen in this storyline how those in government, or at least in politics, can be deceitful too. So there's a complexity to this storyline, even if a lot of the action and dialogue is very jokey and even cartoony at points. And that's kind of like the strength and the weakness of Peter David's writing. He will engage with real world topics like politics, but it can be kind of subverted sometimes, or diminished sometimes, by his propensity for making other aspects of his writing overly cartoony and jokey. Sometimes he gets the balance right. He gets it really right with X Factor number 87, but other times it's a little bit off. I think it's okay in this particular issue. Havoc ends and says, with his big wrap-up speech, we've seen by the events today that more often than not, detractors of GCs, that was Strong Guy's coinage, have their own hidden agenda. We were fortunate enough today to root out Senator Shafran's, and we'll be hunting down the rest of his supporters, the so-called Nasty Boys, and their leader, because he doesn't know who the leader is. One of our people, Multiple Man, says he can give us a complete description of the man that the Nasty Boys simply call Mr. S. We'll bring him in. X Factor's job will be to serve and protect the American people and to go wherever we're needed. Quite simply, ladies and gentlemen, we care. You have my blood oath on that. And that's interesting because, again, very interesting bookending. The first page, we have, it looks like blood on the screen, but actually it's a tomato. And here at the end, we've actual blood, the senators on the screen, dripping down the screen. Reminds me a little bit of the opening of Watchmen with the smiley badge. Also another comic that engaged with politics and the implications of superheroes in the real world. And here we have the implication of mutants working for the government that is being explored in this particular series. And that's it. TV switched off. Next month, read Incredible Hulk 391 for the beginning of X Factor's next mission, and then join us back here for a story of Wolfsbane called Excommunication, because of course at this time period Peter David was writing the Incredible Hulk. So I will be covering that particular crossover. I do have those issues, so stay tuned for that. There's no letters page here, but there is a nice 2-page image here of the old and new X Factor teams. So we've got the original X-Men here, and we've got the new team here, drawn, penciled and inked by Tom Rainey. So it's a pretty nice image. I did like Tom Rainey's style at this time. I think the body language on Cyclops and Jean Grey there is kind of funny. It's like they're pals rather than romantic partners. I don't like that term partner. Lovers, that's better. The pose on the Beast there is pretty good. I don't think his Archangel is quite right there in terms of the wings. Strong guy, huge here. I think his pose on Rain is good. Yeah. It's got little areas of weakness, but Tom Rainey's definitely a developing talent at this point in his career. No letters page. There you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X Factor number 75, double-sized issue. That wraps up Peter David's first story arc with Larry Stroman on the title. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section to the video. And if you enjoyed my review, please like the video on YouTube. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.